My name is Julie Pearson Little Thunder with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. And I'm here interviewing Robert Buzzard as part of the Chilocco Veterans Group project. Robert, you're a Cherokee and a Chilocco alum from the class of 57, a member of the Chilocco Board of Directors and a veteran. We'll be talking about some of your Chilocco memories today, as well as your military service in the Air Force. Thank you for taking the time to interview with me. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Pawnee, Oklahoma, at the Indian Hospital. And I grew up mostly at the Chilocco area. They had, I don't know what you would call it, but it was some people call it Chilocco Reservation, but it was the surrounding area. It wasn't on campus. It was farmland that my father tried for a while.
Farming for a while?
Tried farming, but he didn't quite make it, so she had to give that up.
What about your mother? What did she do for a living?
She was just our mother. She's
homemaker and
there was
raising kids.
There were 10 in my family, so she was very busy mother.
Yes, for sure. What about brothers or sisters, and where were you in the lineup?
I was there were I got to think about this. There was a
well, you have 9 brothers and sisters. We figured that out.
Yeah. Actually, there was 11 of us. We had one adopted who was a niece, but she was she grew up with us, so we count her as a sister also. And she was younger than me. I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers that was older than me.
Okay.
And
almost in the middle.
Yeah, I was basically in the middle. I had the next one was a sister and 2 twin brothers that was younger than me. Well, I had, if we count my niece, I had 4. 4 sisters younger, and 2 and the twins that were younger than me. They were brothers.
Where did you, what was your exposure? I got your tribal affiliation right, Cherokee. Are you more than?
I'm full.
Multiple tribal affiliations. Okay.
I'm full Cherokee, and
okay.
My native language. That's actually my first language.
Okay, that was what I was going to ask. Your exposure to native, to Cherokee and Cherokee culture.
In my family, that's all we spoke until we started going to grade school. And,
okay.
Except for my older siblings, I guess. I asked my older brother about that one time. He said that he learned how to speak English before he started school. I don't know how that worked, but for me, I didn't learn until I was probably about in grade school. I don't know. I'm still learning.
Where did you go to grade school?
At Chilocco.
At Chilocco, okay.
Yeah.
Because was it your father who worked there?
No, he didn't work there. He was at the beginning he was still farming. A lot of these, I'll say Cherokees, I guess other tribes did that too. They were from the Cherokee Nation. We lived around the Chilocco area, and a lot of them would migrate to different parts of the country where there was work, mostly harvesting fruit and things like that.
Right.
But Dad did that for a while until he finally got a job there in Ark City working at. There was used to be a meat packing house there in Ark City.
Okay.
And he got a job there, and that's where actually he worked till he retired.
Okay. So the elementary school, you went to the Chilocco Elementary School on campus there?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were, how old did you say when you entered school? About 7 or 8 or younger?
When I what?
When you first went to elementary school?
I was, what about this October? So I was 6 and turned
You
7.
were 6, turned
Yeah.
7. Were there other family members or extended family at Chilocco already?
At the public school?
Yeah.
Yes, I had an older brother and a sister there when I was in first grade.
Right. Already there. So what was one of the, you were going back home at night during elementary school, you were in your home?
Yes, we lived at home
'Cause
during public elementary school.
Right, right. And then when did you eventually move on to the campus?
9th grade.
9th grade, okay.
Yeah.
What was one of the hardest adjustments for you once you moved onto campus?
Oh, probably would be I don't really recall. I think it's probably leaving the family and going in with all these strangers, you know.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably was the hardest thing for me. You know, I was so used to, home. Of course, we were pretty much free to roam out in the prairie wherever we wanted.
Right.
But there, we were still at Chilocco. We were still able to do that, but it was pretty much restricted where and when, you know. So I think that was probably the hardest part, leaving the family going and something entirely new.
Right. What was the easiest adjustment for you?
The easiest adjustment is the easiest adjustment is I don't know if I would say there was anything easy adjustment, they're just so gradual that it just there was no really one thing that really turned me on, to the school.
Right.
It was just something that I knew that I had to go to school because Mom told me to.
And some of your classmates, even from elementary school, probably in middle school, were still at Chilocco. Is that right?
No,
Or not really?
No, there wasn't. The ones that I was in elementary school with,
Public.
they went to Bacone.
Oh, okay.
Two of my good buddies, they would end up in Bacone, and the rest of them would usually go to either Arc City or to high school. They either go to Arc City or Newkirk, I guess. I don't know where they went. But there wasn't there wasn't anybody that I went to elementary school with there in high school.
Okay. What dorm were you in?
I was in home 2, and I was in home 1, home 2, and home 6, all 3 of them.
Okay. Was there a pretty big Cherokee contingent at Chilocco at that point?
No, I think it was pretty well evenly divided with among other tribes. It was pretty much even.
What teachers or classes stood out for you in school?
I think I liked math because I liked the teacher. He was our junior high football coach too, so I kind of liked math. Well, actually, I did like math quite a bit. I took algebra and geometry under him, and I guess my next one would have been American history, which I really later on I didn't believe it anyway. So,
Yeah,
but
right.
anyway, the teacher was American history teacher that I had. One of his boys was a good friend of mine in elementary school. And I was kind of, like I knew the man.
Right. What did you do what kinds of sports did you participate in?
I just played football.
Football?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it.
Um, what detail did you have?
The details I had was, well, of course, I had to keep the room clean, I had to keep the dorm clean.
Right.
That was the, but we all had to take part in that. We didn't have any outside janitors coming in and cleaning up for us. That was the detail, the main detail we had. Then if you got in trouble, you had extra detail, which I had extra details.
How often did you go home? And it wasn't very far, actually.
No, we had days, weekends that they called Boys Town Day,
Mhm.
that we could go home for the weekend, or we could
Okay.
pass and go home for the weekend. And I really didn't go as much as you would think, but I didn't. After I got friends,
Mhm.
I'd spend time with my friends.
Right, right.
Okay.
How did you get home when you went?
Oh, they usually someone would come and pick me up.
Okay. What did you do for entertainment when you weren't in class?
Oh, we just kind of, sometimes we would go out to what we called, I think we called it the lawn out there in the middle. You've been out there on campus, so we'd go out there at night time. We'd have Indian dances,
Mhm.
We would have what we called stomp dance.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we would do after, or we would just go out there and maybe visit with the girls if, from certain time to certain time, of course. And they had other entertainment too. They had movies sometimes. Sometimes they had dances and just different things like that. But then on weekends, we'd go out to the woods, maybe just roam around, see what we could find.
Right. What's like a memory that stands out for you in terms of either class or outside of class?
I think what really stands out for me, in my first couple of years there, I took welding as my trade, and they were making a new football field out there, and I happened to be in welding when they were building the bleachers, and then I took part putting the bleachers together out there. And they're still there, so I guess we did a pretty good job.
Oh, neat.
No, it was, like I said, I wasn't really the welder, but I did take part in.
Right.
One thing I recall about that, is that we had, our instructor was, he was all crippled up, he could just barely walk with the cane. And when we first started putting them together, Chilocco had this old crane. I mean, it was just something antique, and had cables to operate that bucket. And he was up there, he was operating the controls and the foot pedals. He could hardly move his legs. Well, he'd come down. We had long I-beams that we, come down. Well, he'd bring that down like that, but we'd start running. But I guess he was pretty good because he never did hurt anybody. But the older boys, the older welders, there's the one that did the welding. We would just kind of learning process for us. But I remember doing all that.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch the National Guard exercises while you were at school?
No, I didn't.
drills,
They usually their army was off, not with the campus. It was a little ways out, and that's where they would go. They, I don't know when they built that armory, but they would just go there and have their drills and everything. No, they didn't. At their meetings, they didn't come on campus. They just went to that armory, and I guess they drilled inside and had classes inside.
Right. What about the high school dances, the school dances?
Yeah, they had them maybe once a month or something like that. I don't recall. Yeah, we
You
went
enjoy
to
those,
them.
or
Yeah, I didn't go to them very often. A lot of times, had to take who had to dress up, the sports coat, and I wasn't that type of person. uh, but the funny thing is, though, those other students, that knew me there, that's two of them bring this up, that he was the only one that had sport coat, so everybody borrowed it, I don't recall that, but they always bring that up. He always borrowed his, just pass it around. Like,
Right.
well, it actually, Chilocco was like a big family.
Mhm.
But the dances, yeah, they were. I went to a few of them, but like I said, I didn't very much like to get all dolled up to go.
So you ended up enlisting in the Air Force. What happened after you left Chilocco?
Air Force.
You went straight to the Air Force?
Yeah.
Okay. And why did you enlist?
Well, 18, 19-year-old Indian didn't have much chance of getting a job anymore. And I actually wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. And I was so interested to see the airplanes flying by, overhead. And that was I guess, and my older brother was in Air Force too.
Oh, he was, okay.
Not at that time that I went in. He was already through with his tour of duty. And that's the main reason I went in was probably after some kind of adventure instead of going right into the job market or working at a filling station or out here doing something that I didn't want to do.
And so are we talking about 1958 or 59 or?
Oh, it would be 58.
58.
57, 58.
Right. Where did you do your boot camp training? Your boot camp training? Or your training for the Air Force?
It was down in Texas, Lackland, San Antonio.
Okay. Had you ever been there before?
No, that was the first time.
What were your impressions of Texas when you got to go off base?
It was discipline. That's the only time that I was there. And once I got out of boot camp, I didn't go back until 50 years later, maybe.
Well, how did your background at Chilocco help prepare you for that?
Oh, that was just easy transfer. It was just. I mean, I knew that I had to keep everything neat. I knew how to make my bed. I knew how to take care of my own clothes. I knew everything. It really did. Chilocco was just a little more strict in the military because everybody was the same there. Everybody had the same haircut, same clothes, same shoes, same bed, same everything. So but it was easy.
Were there other Native soldiers in your?
No, there wasn't. It was just, as far as I know, I was only one in that what they call flights.
What did you think of your officers there?
We didn't really have anything to do with the officers during boot camp. They were there, but it's mainly just the enlisted men putting us through the training. We had all enlisted instructors. We hardly had anything to do with officers.
Were there any surprises about boot camp for you?
Oh, probably the surprises would be how different races are. Between white, black. Mexicans were pretty much like us. There was no there wasn't any. It was like you just kind of fit in, but then you get into the other, the white or the black. To me, it was totally different because I'd never been around them, Chilocco and my family and relatives and Garland and everybody else, And once you get in there, you just wonder, they talked about doing this and that, where I've been, Chilocco, But it's just kind of it's kind of complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody just out of high school.
Where did you go after boot camp?
I went up to Illinois, Snoot Air Force Base for training, aircraft mechanic training. And I don't recall how long that was, a year, perhaps 6 months maybe.
Did you use any of your welding up there, or was it?
No, it was just a mechanical type aircraft, yeah.
How about, did you get on a plane did you fly on a plane at all?
Well, a lot. After I
What was
left.
that like, your first airplane flight?
I thought it was boring. No, it was something that I always wanted.
Huh.
My first experience with that was, this is great. Look, here I am way up here in the air, and it was a few hours that was there where we was going to go instead of, 2 days later, you get there.
But it became routine pretty quickly, huh?
Then after that, it was pretty boring afterwards.
Did you enjoy working on planes, though?
Yes, I did. It was pretty easy, really.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty tight,
Mm-hmm.
but it was. I enjoyed it while I was in the military.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long did you serve? I guess Vietnam was going to start at around 61 or something.
Well, Vietnam started back in the late 50s.
Oh, that's right.
We really didn't get into it until Kennedy era.
Yes.
We were already in it anyway. We had so-called instructors there and others.
Right.
We had the Air Force actually was there. The fighter planes was there, and they had the Vietnamese security. So what was decided was that we would send the Marines and Army in there to relieve the Vietnamese Army so they could go out and fight the war, and there would be our security, but from there just grew. But I was in 8 years.
Oh, 8 years,
Yeah.
okay. So
I got out in the mid-60s.
Did you ever ship overseas at all?
I was overseas 6 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
I came back and went back.
You re-enlisted?
Yeah, I went back overseas. Most of my time, tour duty was overseas, very little stateside.
So where were you
I was
serving?
I was in Germany and stationed in Germany, but it was always going here, going there, wherever the planes went.
Wherever the planes went, you followed
We
them.
went, yeah. We was there, and then we'd take off sometimes on weekends and visit different places.
And your job was primarily fixing the planes,
Yeah,
making
working
sure the
on
planes were
planes,
well
yeah.
maintained.
Yeah.
What did you think of Germany when you went on base? What did you think of that?
It was a pretty country. It was, of course, it had already been repaired from the wars and everything. There's still some damages there. When I first went over, they still had some damages that they hadn't redone.
So we were talking about you could still see evidence from World War II a little bit.
Yeah, it was still.
But it was
maybe they're probably still there, but they had the big bunkers, up on the hill that they had blown up.
Right.
I never did go up in them. Some of them guys went on up.
Right.
You'd see them way out there in pasture up on the hill, and along Holland, the border there, they had I don't know what they called them. They were not German, tank traps, I think they called them, that they had built. They were just concrete posts, maybe like 3 in a row, just whole border of Holland and Germany. Those were still there. But other than that, the country was a beautiful country. It was. These old, very old, ancient.
And did you repair planes then in Vietnam as well?
Did I what?
Repair planes in Vietnam?
No, I didn't go there.
Okay.
I mainly spent my time in Europe and then some stateside duty.
What's an experience that stands out for you from those eight years?
Yeah. The discharge. Well, I got discharged twice. I got out and went back in. That's about how my 8 years. It was a little over 8 years because they did a little reserve time in between.
Right.
But I've been asked that, by the other friends I was in over there. How come you come back in? Tell my folks get good discharge. I'm going to go back in and do it again. No, I think the whole adventure of being in the military was a lot of times it was pretty dull, and a lot of times things were going and you just didn't even think about other things. And another thing too that reminded me so much about being at Chilocco, because the commandeer that we had, I think I missed that a lot when I got out of the commandeer. And I missed that for a long time after I got out. 20 years after I got out, I still thought I was going to have my bag, getting ready to go somewhere. That's actually the way I felt, and I always felt like it was just temporary. Wherever I was at, wherever I lived, I felt like it was just temporary, because I was so used to that from Chilocco. Actually, a little over 12 years of people coming and going, friends coming and going. So even after I got out, after my 8 years, I felt that way for a long time, that I was still going somewhere,
Right.
I think I got over it.
After you got out, what did you do?
After I got out, I kind of took the time coming home. I spent some time up there in New York with some friends of mine that I went to school with. And
That you went to Chilocco with?
yeah. And the syndicates up there. And I seen there wasn't much going for me there. There was guys that weren't doing anything. So I was probably there a little over a month or something, So after I realized that this was going nowhere, I thought, well, okay, I'll head back for the prairie. So I hopped the train and came back, and I went my sister lived up there by Wichita, so I went up there. And my real goal was, what I really wanted to do was go up to Idaho area and train to be a forest ranger.
Oh, okay.
It's what my dream was. I really wanted to do that. I got up there by Wichita, it's a little town of Augusta, where my sister and her husband lived. I went up there and I was there probably about a week, and I got to thinking, I got to do something, I just, my family's going to start thinking I'm a bum, just laying around. So I thought, well, I still had my mind set on going up north.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I'm going to go look for a job. So I went over to one of the aircraft plants, and they hired me.
Right, because that was such a big center.
Yes, so they hired me. So I thought, well, okay, I'll work there for a little while. So I went on to work there, and then kept working there and got married, then had a daughter, and many years later, I'm still around there. My dream finally went away, I guess.
A big Native community up there. Were you involved with that? The Indian
No,
community up there?
I wasn't. I worked there at that aircraft plant for a little while, but then I thought, well, let me go back a little bit. When I was in the military, we used to always we had these sessions that we always had, just throwing in their gripes, and I remember we'd be sitting out or somewhere doing something cold, wet, snow, rain coming down your neck, all muddy. And we'd be sitting around, when I get out of here, I'm going to give me an inside job. I'm going to give me an inside job. You don't catch me outside again. So when I got inside with the aircraft plant, I worked there about a week, and I thought, this isn't for me. I got to get outside. I got to get back outside. So I kept applying at this, which was KG&E at the time, was like OG&E, big utility and a telephone company. So telephone company finally, after a couple of years or so, maybe longer, well, in the meantime, I had gotten laid off from Beechcraft, and then I kind of messed around for a little while. Then I went on and got a job at General Electric at the engine shop, and I worked there for a while. And I didn't like it there either because it was inside. And I was still going to these other telephone and electric companies to apply. The telephone company, I went over and renewed my application one time. They said, well, okay, so we don't have anything for you, but we will have something for you, but we have to send you to school for it. So I said, well, okay, I'll go for that. So I left there, and then right a block over was the electric company. So I went on. I usually made my rounds that way. I'll go to the telephone company and go there. So I went over there, and I had applied for line maintenance. And this woman there at HR, she looked it up. She said, okay, I'll renew your application, but we don't have any openings right now. So I started to leave, and this guy come out of the office there, had a little office of his own there. He'd come out. He said, hey, come here, I want to talk to you. So I went in there, and then he offered me a job at one of these power plants.
Yeah.
So he said, this would be a chance for you to get into the company anyways. After 6 months, you can transfer out and go anywhere you want to. So I said, okay, I'll take that. So he sent me out there, and I talked to the plant superintendent there, and I knew I was going to take that job already anyway. So I got over there, and I had to give the place I was working at weeks notice or something, I don't remember. So I went to work there. 28 years later, I retired.
And were you outdoors mainly?
Yes, I was outdoors.
Okay.
I was inside
Taking
outdoors.
care of the equipment, just back and forth.
I retired as a operating foreman.
Wow. Okay.
After all the years.
So you were able to kind of keep in touch this whole time with your family, basically in Oklahoma too.
Yeah,
Not that
I
far
was. It was. The hours weren't very good. We had rotating shifts, all 3 shifts. We would work day, we would work evening, we would work 11:30 to 7:30, and every week, we would take something else. And I was always tired. I thought it was supposed to be that way until I retired.
Do you feel like that's kind of home now, right, outside of Wichita?
Where I'm at now, well, I got I think a little over 20 acres out there, and I live out there by myself with my 2 dogs, and I'm kind of slipping back to temporary feeling, because I think what I'm really looking at now is getting back here. I'm not biased about races or anything. I try not to be. But they're all German farmers around me. Of course, the young German farmers, they got other jobs too, to make ends meet, I guess.
Right.
But they actually, I'm the only Indian out there. So I really do miss my Indian friends. I really do. I miss that. So that's kind of why I think I'm feeling like just temporary thing,
Right.
I don't know.
How long have you been on the Chilocco National Board?
I think I'll be finishing up my second tour of duty in June.
Okay. Have you had any offices with the board? Any positions with the board?
No, just the member
Right.
at large.
Right.
Member at large.
Right.
That's what I remember. That's as far as I want to go. I don't think I want to get too involved with it. There's not much to it. You come to meetings, and if you want to tell them something, you tell them. But that's giving me a chance to actually get with the Indians again,
Right,
and
right.
mingle with them.
Right,
I like that. I love the reunions that we have here,
right.
but we won't go have one this year.
Well, yeah, that's being resolved right now, I guess. So are you a member, besides the Chilocco Native Veterans Group, are you a member of any other veterans groups?
Well, no, I'm not a member of like VFW or anything like that. I'm not, but it's the chief of the tribe. He visits different cities where there's Cherokees. So he comes to Wichita. He came to Wichita about 3 weeks ago, and they gave me an honor. They gave me this as a veteran.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sure. So this is, I'll have you hold that up,
Yes.
Robert. So this
See, this
is
is
my camera.
this is civilian award, and he gave me one. There's probably about, you've seen the military ribbons,
Yes,
haven't you?
yes, that's a nice.
And I got one of them too, and he said if you're active, you can wear that on your uniform. But I'm not active, so.
Right.
But I still, but
Do
this
you
is
mind
one.
holding it up there? There we can see it. Great. I'll take a picture of it too. Oh, that's beautiful.
Did
medal.
you get it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I'll
And I
take
got a plaque out there too, about like that he gave me. I was
Oh.
going to bring it in, but I thought, well, this is too much like
Yeah.
bragging. But I think I will bring it in, because I'm actually pretty. That's about the only thing I ever got from the Cherokee Nation.
So they do have up there in Wichita the Cherokee community that's fairly, they meet occasionally or have doings.
Yeah, I think they may meet maybe once a year, maybe, I'm not sure. But they send out letters.
Right.
They send me a notice telling me that they're going to have a meeting.
Right.
They have a meal, and they have the meeting is, of course, the chief and his the group they brings with him. They make speeches. And,
Right.
I'm not interested in them speeches though. But I go to them, and this year I wasn't even going to go. Then my daughter, she wanted to go. I said, okay, we'll go. So I went, and you honored me as a
Well, it's
veteran.
good that you did.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
And I was busy talking. My daughter was sitting there. She kept punching me. She said, they're calling you up there. Oh, okay. And I got something else that I don't remember what it was. A couple of times I went up there for something like this, but I did appreciate this though. But I'll show you that other one when
Yeah.
it's done. It's about like that. Then he gave me a ball cap. What it has on there is Cherokee Warrior on this.
Oh,
Ball cap.
yeah.
I got that out there too. I brought
That's
that
a
with
nice,
me too.
nice
Yeah.
looking hat.
I'll bring that in after we get done.
Okay. Okay. Well, what would you like people to know or remember from your story about your service and your Chilocco memories?
What would I what?
What would you like people to remember?
What would I like them to remember?
Yeah.
Probably probably my time in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I don't know if you're probably too young to actually remember what went on during the Vietnam era. We weren't too popular, so now we're still not too popular. but
But Native
I do
communities.
like for people to remember that I did time in the military.
Right.
I don't really go around waving flags or anything, but it makes me feel good to know what I did, where I've been, what I've seen.
Right.
I've seen things that I don't talk about. That's probably not the way I feel about being in the military. But I do know that I was there, you know.
Right.
And another thing I did too, I thought I kind of enjoyed, not military, but I volunteered for this Habitat for Humanity International. I went to Mexico and Central America and helped build. And I've seen things there too that I thought made me glad to be where I'm at.
That must have been an amazing.
And when
experience.
I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even say this, but when the president was campaigning, he kept talking about America's going to be great again. He doesn't know how great it is now. Before he does. He just hadn't been where I've been. He didn't come from where I come from. But anyway, that Habitat for Humanity, I did that for a while. Then my hip started bothering me. And I couldn't, we had these blocks about like that. We laid, building walls and doing concrete floors.
Oh wow! So you were doing the construction part.
What we did there, we would buy our own transportation. We bought our own plane tickets. We paid for our own ground transportation, which we had a van and a driver while we were there, and we had to pay for our own room and board, and we donated so much. We donated so much money for supplies, to buy supplies to build the houses with, and I enjoyed that. And I was down in Honduras, and there was this little girl about like that. I don't know why she got attached to me, and I really loved that little girl. because there's all dark complected, and every day, she lived right next door in a little kind of it was a little house. It was made out of, looked like one of them dirt adobe, I guess they call them. That's what it looked like. And she lived there, and her parents every day would leave. Well, they would be gone by the time we got to the work site. The mom and dad would be gone, and where they were going was it was coffee bean picking season, and they would go up to the mountains and coffee plantation and pick coffee, and they would come back in the afternoon, long about 3 o'clock. They would come back. They had this John Deere tractor with the big trailer. That was their shuttle, They would bring them back. But this little girl, she'd come out there, and she was pretty shy. But I'd be working, I'd be doing something, I'd turn around, she'd be, like back there, standing there looking at me, and she wouldn't come there, and then I would just go like this. No, you didn't go like this to him, you went like this to him. Like, then she'd come over there, and and we weren't supposed to give them anything, like treats. Because the work leader said if you start doing that, said all the kids in this little town will be here every day. But I would sneak some M&Ms or something, that would sneak behind this building, and I'd give her them M&Ms, we'd go back there and eat M&Ms, and she had an older sister, and of course there was other little kids around there too. And pretty soon they probably sensed something was going on. They'd come around there and she'd have M&Ms, and she'd go like that. It's like it's just a little thing like that. But I went back again just to see how she was doing, and I found out that she was only 7 years old. I thought, she was 7 years old, and I thought she was like 4. She was really tiny, but that's that's the way they were. They're just little people because of their diets, I guess. Right. I don't know. But I didn't go back after that. I wanted to. I still think about going back now. I doubt she's there now. But yeah, that little girl, she was the cutest little thing. I think about her. Yeah, I did that for a while, and thought I just quit.
Well,
I just don't do much anymore. Just take care of my own stuff. Well, I got 3 rental houses left that I've got to take care of. I had some properties in Missouri that I was taking care of, and so I finally got sold out.
Well, I hope you get to come back closer to Oklahoma, and thank you for sharing that story. That's
well, I would like to come back. I had this friend down there at Seminole that I used to go visit, and we would go to all these singings, tribal singings that they had around there. We'd go to them, go to the stomp dances, powwows, and they don't have that up there.
Right,
Germans, they don't do things like that.
Right. Is there anything else we should talk about that we haven't covered?
Except that I started working when I was about 13 years old. Either that or just settled for what my dad could buy me as far as clothing goes.
What keeps you young? Work keeps you young.
If I want a good-looking shirt, I'm gonna have to go get it and not have to wear something that my mom bought out of a garage sale or something.
Right. Well, thank you for your time today, Robert, and thank you for your military service.